there's three things that I'm going to encourage you to do. The first is, by golly, we got to have the courage to keep going for it, keep sticking our necks out. The second thing is, we got to understand that life's a roller coaster. Things aren't going to go exactly the way we planned. Has anybody's life here gone exactly the way you planned? If you raise your hand, you're a liar. So we're going to talk about, we got to continue to go for it and stick our necks out, that we got to keep the faith in the troubling times. Life's a roller coaster, but we got to keep the faith that good things are going to happen, and we got to fight to the finish. All those in favor of those three things, say aye.
Aye.
Right on. There you go. All right. So, first thing we got to do is that we got to continue, despite the fact that things don't always go the way we plan, we got to keep courageously sticking our necks out. And there's a buddy of mine, Dr. Jerry Gibson. This guy is 90 years old. He's a retired minister, used to be the team chaplain of the University of Illinois football team. And Jerry and his wife, Norma Dean, used to live here in Denver. Norma Dean. Jerry and Norma Dean Gibson. And Jerry and I would have breakfast once a month at the Perkins up on Sheridan and the Boulder Turnpike. And Jerry's one of those kind of guys. Do you all know anybody like this that when they start eating and then they start talking and they start spitting food at you? So like when you're sitting across from Jerry, often you're dodging his hash browns and sausage and everything is flying over your shoulders. But we were having breakfast one day and we were talking about how it takes a tremendous amount of risk-taking and courage to reach our dreams and our goals. And Jerry's mouth was full of food and he eats like a junkyard dog. You know, he had the bacon and the sausage and the fried eggs and the hash browns. And I'm over there just eating my oatmeal because I have genetically high cholesterol in my family, you know. But so I'm dodging food as he's talking about, Mark, it takes a tremendous amount of courage and risk-taking to reach our dreams and our goals. And he goes, we could learn from turtles. I said, what the heck are you talking about? We could learn from turtles. And he goes, think about it. A turtle doesn't make any progress until it sticks its neck out. And I want to encourage everybody this year as we get ready to soar in 1-4, we got to keep sticking our necks out. You know, things don't always go exactly the way we plan, but we got to let go of past hurts and disappointments and keep sticking our necks out. And a recent example for me, and it's a story in the book, Life's a Roller Coaster, Tips for the Dips, was back in March, I asked my longtime girlfriend to marry me in Paris. And we've been going out for 10 years. And she travels internationally on business. And so she was over in France, or she was going to France for a business meeting. And so we said, what the heck, I've never been to Paris before. And so we knew at the end of her business trip, she was about 90 miles outside of Paris, but I was going to fly into Paris. We'd spend 4 or 5 days in Paris. And so all of our friends, including my kids, were going, if you're going to be in Paris, you've got to ask her to marry you. And they'd say this right in front of Kathy, and Kathy would say, don't even think about asking me to marry you in Paris. I don't think that's a good idea. But I was like, hey man, I've never been to Paris. It's a city you love. The woman of my dreams, we've been going out for 10 years. I'm going to ask her to marry me in Paris. So I had the ring. I fly into Paris. She still had some time at her business conference. And so I get into Paris on a Sunday morning and I've got most of that day to kill. I've got the ring, but I have no idea where, when, and how I'm going to ask Kathy to marry me. So I'm in the gym getting a workout in. I'm a big believer in the sweat a day keeps the doctor away. And I just struck up a conversation with this guy who was also in the gym. It so happens this guy's an attorney from Houston, Texas, and he's over in Paris, France, doing some oil and gas work. Who knew? But I was explaining to him what was going on, that I had the ring and I was going to propose to my girlfriend. And I said, you got any ideas? And he goes, oh, has anybody here ever been to Paris? Ever been to Paris? Anybody? Have you ever been to Sacré-Cœur, the church on the north side of town? Well, this guy says, I got the perfect place for you. Sacré-Cœur. It's this beautiful church on the north side of town. It took 39 years to build this church. And it sits up on the highest hill in Paris. And at night, after you walk out of the church, the lights of Paris are below you. It's incredibly romantic. So I had the spot where I was going to propose to my girlfriend. So the next day dawns, the weather absolutely sucks in Paris. It's rainy, windy, snowy, foggy. You can't see 10 feet in front of you. But I had this ring in my pocket and it was burning a hole in it, and so I knew I was going to go through for this. So we go up to Sacré-Cœur. It's like 7 o'clock at night. It's pitch dark. It's foggy. You can't see anything. You know, we get out of the cab. I pop the umbrella and it's like shh, wind and rain and sleet. We get inside the church. We're walking through the church. It's beautiful. If you ever go to Paris, you got to make sure that you see Sacré-Cœur. But for a while, I thought maybe I'll ask her to marry me inside the church, because outside the weather was just terrible. But I thought that'd be too weird to ask her to marry me inside of a church. So we tour through the church. We walk out the big wooden doors out into the elements, and Kathy went out before me, and she was expecting me to pop the umbrella for her. And she turns around, and I was down on one knee. And she goes, "Did you fall down?" And I just went into my spiel. I said, "Sweetie, this is the highest point in Paris. And normally on a good night, you could see the lights of the city below. And this would be the highest moment of my life if you accepted this ring as a sign of my love and devotion. I promise to love you, protect you, and entertain you the rest of my life." She goes, "Is this a joke?" I went, "No, I'm proposing to you." She goes, "Is that real?" I went, "Yes." She goes, "Okay." Sometimes in life, you got to stick your neck out and you got to go for it. And so I want to encourage you to try to soar in 1-4. You got to stick your necks out. All those in favor, say yes.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to stick our necks out. And then the second thing you got to do is you got to keep the faith. You know, because life is a roller coaster. Things aren't going to always go the way you planned, right? Is anybody's life? No, nobody's life's gone exactly the way we planned. We have these unexpected twists and turns. A couple of months ago, I went back to Kansas City, my hometown. I was, and Scotty wrote about this. I was inducted into my Raytown, Missouri, the school district Hall of Fame. So I'm flying back into Kansas City, and as you fly into Kansas City from Denver, you fly over the Missouri River. And so it was a nice day, and I just noticed the river, and it reminded me of a story that in a book that I had read a couple of years ago by William Bridges. Has anybody here ever heard of William Bridges? William Bridges is an expert on transitions. He used to be a college professor, and he does a lot of consulting of corporations about effectively dealing with change, challenge, and adversity. And he was really struggling a few years back because he had lost his wife of 45 years. She had died of cancer. And he was just really struggling with her loss, as you could imagine. But he was doing some consulting work on the East Coast, and he was flying back to the West Coast. And it was a beautiful, clear day. And so he had a window seat in the airplane. And so as he's flying across the country, and he's kind of beating himself up going, "Man, I'm really struggling with the loss of my wife, and I'm the transition guy. I'm supposed to know what the heck's going on here." He just was looking down on America's heartland from 35,000 feet, and he just began to notice the great rivers of our country, the Ohio, the Mississippi, the Missouri, and how none of them are a straight line. You know, they all twist and turn. And then it dawned on him that that's a lot like life. Life has a lot of unexpected twists and turns, but around these rivers where these twists and turns occur, rich sediment is dropped that becomes fertile soil where we grow all of our crops that feed America. And he said, could that be a great metaphor for life, that very often in life, when we're going through these unexpected, unwanted twists and turns, could it be that rich sediment is being dropped that becomes fertile soil to help us grow? And I think that's how we have to look at the challenges we might be going through in life, whether it's physical, emotional, or financial, that the potential is there, that is rich sediment that becomes fertile soil to help us grow and overcome whatever kind of challenges we may have. And so we got to keep the faith that despite these unexpected and unwanted twists and turns, by golly, we can overcome those challenges in life and become superior to our former self. So we got to keep the faith All those in favor of keeping the faith, say aye. All right, so we're going to stick our necks out and we're going to keep the faith. And the final piece to us being able to soar in 1-4 is, by golly, we got to fight to the finish. And I know there's one guy here that's an Auburn University fan. And did anybody, even if you're not a college football fan, did you see that Auburn-Alabama game a couple of weeks ago where Alabama attempts a 57-yard field goal at the end of regulation, and for a while it looked like it was going to be good, but it fell just a little short, and an Auburn guy catches the ball about 8 yards deep in the end zone and then runs 108 yards the other way for a touchdown. It was the greatest ending to a college football game I have ever seen, and I've been watching college football for 50 years. It reminded me of 1994. When the Colorado Buffaloes were playing at Michigan. Back then I was a sportscaster at Channel 4, hosted the Bill McCartney Show. I was standing on the field there at Michigan Stadium. 105,000 people are around me. There are 6 seconds to go in the game. The Buffs are down 5. It had been a very frustrating day for the Colorado Buffaloes. They had had many scoring opportunities, but it had not meant to be. So it's a television timeout. The Buffs are down 5, 6 seconds to go. Everybody knows what's happening. Cordell Stewart, the Buffs are 64 yards from the Michigan goal line. Once we come out of this television timeout, Cordell Stewart's just going to launch it and we'll see what happens. So we're in the television timeout. I'm down there on the field. There's 105,000 people going crazy in the big house, and suddenly I hear this lady yell, "Hey, McIntosh!" And I turn around, and there was a lady in the stands who was decked out head to toe in CU Buff gear. She had had a few cocktails, you could tell. She goes, "I drove all the way from Denver, Colorado to watch this crap." I don't know what you want me to do about it. So about that time, we're out of the television timeout. Cordell Stewart drops back to throw, launches it, and it looked like it got a booster shot about halfway through. It gets down the goal line. Blake Anderson leaps into the air, tips it into the waiting arms of Michael Westbrook. Touchdown, Colorado, the miracle at Michigan. The Buffs had fought to the finish and claimed victory, and that's what we got to do. We've got to continue to stick our necks out. We got to keep the faith, and we got to fight to the finish. That's how we're going to soar in 1-4. All those in favor say yes. All right, I want to close with this. You know, I've just been a jock my whole life. Back when I was a little kid, my dad traveled a lot, and he thought I was kind of slow and needed help. And he kept telling my mom, "You need to take him to some doctor because he's dumber than a box of rocks. He never says anything." I guess I used to hide behind my mom's apron a lot, and people would say, "What's wrong with that kid? He never says anything." She'd go, "Oh, he's just a jock. He's just into his sports." And, you know, I was. And by the time I was a senior in high school, I ended up being a pretty good jock. I was a 3-sport high school All-American. I had just signed a letter of intent to play football and baseball at the University of Missouri. And I was expected to be a first-round selection in the amateur baseball draft in June of 1976. Then I got poked in the eye in a high school basketball game. It knocked me unconscious. I crashed to the floor, fractured my skull, broke all the bones in my middle ear that control my equilibrium and depth perception, so I couldn't judge fly balls anymore. Tore up all the rotator cuff muscles in my left shoulder, so I couldn't throw anymore. I'm deaf in my left ear from bam, hitting the floor. So my athletic career was over from this freak poke in the eye. But I stand before you today. I'm 55 years old. I've already had a cataract repaired in this eye from the poke. I got a cataract in this eye. I can't see any of you. I'm blind in this eye. You know, my shoulders hurt, my knees kind of banged up. I'm kind of being held together with baling wire here. But at 55, you know what? I aspire to be a jock each and every day. You all can too. That's why I wear this jock wristband. And I've got some if anybody wants one afterward. And you all can be a jock as well, and I don't care how old you are. I don't care whether or not you think you got an athletic bone in your body, and I don't care what kind of shape you think you're in. There's the potential for a jock inside of each and every one of us. You see, when we're a jock, we understand that life, was meant to be J, joyful. Count your blessings. We're all here in Golden, Colorado during the holiday season, celebrating the Christmas time. We're loading an RV full of toys for underprivileged kids at Children's Hospital and the Kemp Foundation. The fact that you're all here tells me you're relatively healthy. Sometimes it's difficult, isn't it, to think about the blessings of life when we got a lot of crap going on in our life and we're maybe just all wrapped up in that. But try to be joyful for the blessings of life. When you're jock, you also understand that life was meant to be optimistic. Let go of any past hurts and disappointments. Keep an optimistic attitude toward life. I promise you good things will come your way. You know, I kept an optimistic attitude that there was no way Kathy was going to say no to me in Paris, France. You got to keep an optimistic attitude toward things. Good things will happen. Now, when you're a jock, you do understand that life often requires C, courage. Courageously eliminate any self-destructive behavior that's preventing you from expressing yourselves in healthy and productive ways. What are you putting in your bodies? What are you putting in your minds? Who are you hanging out with? Are they raising you up or are they dragging you down? I got a buddy back in Kansas City. He's been a very successful medical salesperson, father, husband. And his philosophy about who you're hanging out with, he goes, I love to hang out with the positrons, avoid the negatoids, and recruit the tweeners. Who you hanging out with? Are they raising you up? Are they dragging you down? Courageously eliminate any self-destructive behavior that's preventing you from expressing yourselves in healthy and productive ways. I might be a dumb old jock, but I know the acronym JOCK is J-O-C-K. If we're joyful for the blessings of life, optimistic about the future, courageous despite the past, I want to hear from you. What's the K?
Kick ass.
We're going to kick some ass. There you go. See, there's the potential for a jock inside of each and every one of us. We can choose to be joyful. We can choose to be optimistic. We can choose to be courageous. In the game of life, I want to hear from you. We can.
Yeah.
There you go. And when it comes to being able to soar in 1-4, if we keep sticking our necks out, we keep the faith, and by golly, we fight to the finish, we're going to soar in 1-4. Say that with me. Soar in 1-4. One more time. Soar in 1-4. One more time. Soar in 1-4. God bless y'all. Thank you very much.